Alright, so this video is just kind of a ramble. Just the main thing here is the 30B is working. It is runnable on one 3090. You're going to need at least 18, really, looking here, you're going to need at least 24 gigabytes of VRAM to run the 30B even in 4-bit. That's just how it is. I don't think we're going to get any lower than that. In theory, the 4-bit is supposed to offer better results than the 8-bit using the GPTQ quantization method. And I think we see that. And I'll just show some prompts. This will be a pretty long video. Don't expect anybody to really watch it unless you're interested and you want to get some ideas. This is just some of the prompts I've tried. And if you have better prompts or you want to try them for yourself, definitely post in the comments and let me know if you get interesting results too. You make a video, I will respond with the video as well. You comment, I'll comment back. So, just a ramble. See if people like this format. Alright, and Chat Sonic, this isn't even in the game. But it actually did get a higher perplexity score and not burstiness score, but it got a higher perplexity score than Llama did. But the overall rating may include parts written by AI, and it pretty much got it right. Pretty much everything it highlighted was written by AI. And this doesn't flow at all. The boy caught my garment from behind and gave me the message. I waited for Marcus while Glaucon went on, and soon Marcus came running up to us. So, it didn't even mention the message. And well, I guess really, the prayers and the spectacle were over, and we were leaving to go back to the city when, from some way off, Polemarchus, son of Cephalus, caught sight of us starting homewards and sent his slave running to ask us to wait for him. The boy caught my garment from behind and gave me the message. So, I mean, that could be the message. So, that might actually be the best interpretation. Whereas I don't know. I like how Llama did it. This sounds more like what would actually be in the text. Polemarchus said he wishes you and your friend to come up into the citadel. We waited till he came himself. He had been at work in the field. When he reached us, he said, "What do you think?" I mean, come on, that's pretty good. I really like the way that Llama flows with the text. It does a really good job. But the score was lower, even though it did get a higher overall detection, I guess, or maybe a lower detection. It was able to fool GPT-0 more than Chat Sonic was, but less than GPT-3 was. So right now, GPT-3 is undefeated. And we're not going to try U.com. We're not going to try Bing. Those aren't really generators, and this isn't really their strong suit. I will say though, Bing Chat, I did finally get added off the wait list. Bing Chat is very fantastic when it comes to helping get general information. Does a really good job. So we might have to look at that too. Okay, so the wait's finished downloading. I'm uploading them to Google. I think they did complete, so I will make this a public link. And I will put general access to anyone with the link. And you will be a viewer. Actually, I'll make you a commenter, so, post some comments, talk to me. And I'll hit done, and I'll put that in the description. Right now, the 30B is running on one GPU at 21 gigabytes. Before the 30B in 8-bit was running on two GPUs and taking up around 32 to 34 gigabytes. And in 16-bit, wasn't running at all. So the outputs are pretty good with the 30B here. I quantized it using the GPTQ by Quap 200. So we are all good. Here we go with a prompt that's 800 words, 4,000 characters. So I would say it's in the range of 1,000 to 1,200 tokens, and we can copy this all and see how it does with generating some text here. We'll go ahead and generate. At the same time, we'll go to the GPT playground and submit the same thing. I do have a card connected to this, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay. It only came back with 2 sentences, so that is embarrassing. I'll give it another chance here. Okay. Suck. Okay, so GPT-3 looks like it's doing a pretty good job of continuing the actual story. But the amount of text that it's coming back with, okay, so I can actually up the maximum length. But this isn't even meeting the current maximum length. So, again, I am paying for this, so it shouldn't max me out here. Gosh, alright, well. Jesus. Okay, so then it takes a turn here. Socrates asks if the defense will avail his father, and he believes that it does. Whereas in the actual story, obviously, Euthyphro believes that Athens is well versed in his idea of impiety, and that they will see his argument to be uh, good and reasonable. Llama, on the other hand, good God, you're thrown. Have you taken him to court? I should not be doing my duty, Socrates, as a man or son, if I did not proceed against him. I should think not, but did you ever find out when he was committing the murder? Did you catch him in the act? No, he was hiding. I had to ferret him out. How did you come upon him? I tracked him down and caught him and brought him back here. Okay, so both are kind of hard to. I need more text generated, but what I do want to see from these is to see if it comes back with the general idea that a lot of these Socratic dialogues have, where it starts talking about an actual topic. And I think I had to delete the last video I made, but I did do a similar prompt for both, and it did do a good job doing that. So that's it. 30B is working. I'll show the chat feature next. And guys, we went with Descartes. I think the dialogue is messing up because the dialogue requires a lot of pre-context. So I needed to do a larger prompt of dialogue for it to get the kind of few shot learning that I'm looking for. And comparing GPT-3 to Llama 30B, I think now we're getting pretty close. I had to delete the videos where I got some good Plato's outputs, unfortunately, but GPT-3 was winning, but that was on the 13B. Here, Firstly, however, this is llama. It will be necessary to establish what principles are to be regarded as most certain, because these are, as it were, the first objects of our sight by which we can judge of all other things. But before I begin to discuss them, it will be well here to meditate a little on the misconceptions which may occur in philosophizing, in order that we may afterwards, with caution, keep clear of anything of the kind. That there are cases when we may doubt even of our being ourselves. The human understanding is no less susceptible of error than senses, as has already been intimated. Neither have the hands or feet nor of any of the external senses more truth belonging to them than the understanding itself has. For if you include the imagination, the judgment, and reason, there is nothing but belongs entirely to the understanding. This might be a typo. My English knowledge, my grammatical knowledge isn't that perfect, but there is nothing but belongs entirely to the understanding. There could be, some fancy English, but this. Now, I've only really read Plato and Descartes, but I've read Meditations at least 5 times. And I could not tell that this sounds exactly like, because this is how he presents the argument. It flows right. This sounds like it was in the book, like this was part of it. But GPT-3 does pretty good as well. In this, I shall follow a method which, though it may appear somewhat crude, will, however, ensure that all my purpose shall be readily fulfilled. In the first place, then, I will consider what subjects are properly within the province of doubt, and what are not so. Of the former, there are some which have never yet been treated, while others have been but too much discussed. The latter, however, will not distract me, for I shall pass them by without even so much as a glance, for it is only with the former that I shall have to do. Having thus made a division of all objects of my inquiry, I shall proceed to investigate them separately in such a manner as I shall presently explain. Now we have to admit that's just a little bit better, but this is the 30B, so in theory the 64B should really be impressive. What I can do is get another 3060 and replace the 9060 with the 3060, and that should give me about 10 more gigabytes of VRAM. But I'm thinking for the 64B, you really need above 40. Right now we're using 19 gigabytes of VRAM, so that's pushing it. I'm gonna definitely need twice that, if not more. Just a little more than twice that. So pretty good outputs though. Let's try something else. This is just gonna be a dump of outputs. Might as well post another video. Hopefully people appreciate the 30B is released. The weights are out, but other people are putting out weights now. So I might have been just a little bit late. This is the Declaration of Independence. This quote, mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. That's probably the best quote. That's the most hard. That's like the truest quote I've ever read. And but both models, just verbatim, continued the Declaration of Independence. They didn't add anything. This is exactly what it says. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, usurpation, usurpations. How do you pronounce that? U is
usurpation.
Usurpation. What the U? Who uses U? What a weird letter. Pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. That's exactly what it says. That's interesting. I haven't seen that before, and they both did that. So, and Llama even continues. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having indirect object, all having indirect, all having indirect object, all having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states, all having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused to assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance. Unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. You know, that's pretty cool. And man, Thomas Jefferson. Nobody lived a better life than Thomas Jefferson. Cause he was just getting pussy left and right. Like if we're being honest, like he was getting that woke pussy from like chicks, and then he'd go home and he'd fuck all of his slaves. You know, he was getting pussy left and right. And I think there's a quote somewhere that's like like Thomas Jefferson's slaves looked just like him. They were so pale that it was hard to tell if they were his kids or something like that. There's a quote that literally says that from back then. So he was, man, he was really like, he was really living. Like Thomas Jefferson, man, he was living. Um, yeah, but that's crazy. I haven't seen that before. It forbade him. Uh, Weirdly enough, I put the Principia. I thought that that would be, a very well-known document. Not as well, I guess, not as, and the text is kind of convoluted here. It didn't do a copy. Oh, and these colors are just the probabilities of the words. Um, so this is similar to what there's another app that uses this for GPT-2. But if you are interested in creating less detectable text, a good tool would be to use this and see which words have higher versus lower probability. And the idea is to mix up the amount of high probability words and low probability words, ideally in kind of an equal proportion. That's something that these chatbots are not able to do that effectively. But, we got some interesting outputs here. It's, what's another document that's, I guess the Constitution would obviously, try that. Interpretations here. GPT-3 kind of just gave the first paragraph, not really a summary, but I guess in the Constitution, the first paragraph is not really a summary, but just the actual thing that happens, and then after that, it puts in a bunch of how the thing should be, actually done. Uh, but Llama kind of went another direction, and we, the students of the University of Michigan, in order to form a more perfect student body, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provided for the defense. What a weird word. Tranquility. Provide for the defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the government of the undergraduate students of Michigan. I wonder if that's if that's real. Um, Maybe not. But, another interesting output. So far, I think we're going to have to say that this was a better output. But we're just looking around. Okay, so I put in an article about crypto, seeing if it would do a decent job. I'm noticing the llama model, the data is kind of old. One time I put in something about the current president and it came back with Obama. Here it's referencing 2018 as if this article was written sometime around then, although it has the date at the top. Um, the total market cap of all cryptocurrencies tracked by CoinMarketCap.com dropped to $310 billion, the lowest level since December 2018. Ethereum, which has been trading near its lowest level since November, was down 4.5%. XRP, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Cardano were all lower by more than 5%, while Stellar and EOS were up more than 10%. Came out with a shorter prompt. ChatGPT, not ChatGPT, GPT-3, I think we're going to have to give the dub to. The sell-off also triggered an automatic liquidation of long positions on major derivatives exchanges, forcing traders to close their positions. The Ethereum market followed the same downward trend as Bitcoin, with a top-ranked altcoin dipping 4.65% to 1766, 1431 right now. The overall, I'm very surprised Tether hasn't. That's kind of my thing with crypto. Tether is not liquid, but maybe they resolved that issue. I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention too much anymore. Once I saw, a few times Tether almost got called out. Like it happened, like 2017, first time I heard about that. 2021, I heard about it again, and they at both of those times they did not have the means to answer the call when they were called out. But money's completely fake. So if everyone just agrees that Tether has what they say they have, you can facilitate trading just fine. Really, you only need Tether to you buy one coin with Tether and then you take the Tether to another exchange. And generally other exchanges accept Tether, so you're able to do transactions with the Tether without having to do a coin-to-coin transaction. It's kind of like an intermediary, but whatever. I put it through GPT-0, and it came with a perplexity score of 14 of 144, 145 basically, and a burstiness score of 244. We were seeing burstiness and perplexities in the thousands when using a story. But here, let's try. I guess we should copy the whole thing. Oops. All right, a little bit higher. It's Llama 1. These stats, very often, the winner, I think, has a worse output. And this case was no different. But there we go. Both of them do a decent job of continuing the article in a kind of article format, making sense. And just forgot to mention that I reduced the temperature to 1.4 on the Llama model. It's normally at 1.99 because the temperature on GPT-3 right now is 0.7. So maybe that's the same. I'm not sure if it's a 1-to-1 scale where 2 on or 1.99 is the same as 1. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. But we put in a recipe here. Lightly greased oil. It actually removed the word cover. 2 teaspoons oil and cover with cling film. Leave to rise in a warm place for about an hour until doubled in size. To make the filling, put all the ingredients except the pistachios into a food processor. Huh. That looks pretty good because it looks like we're baking some kind of dessert thing. Uh, Add the chopped pistachio nuts and pulse briefly so they are just incorporated. GPT-3 cover with a cling film and leave to prove in a warm place for about 2 hours. Uh, I don't know what proving means. Baking. It's the last rising of the dough. Does anyone know how to bake anymore? Is that a thing? Or is that lost? Did we lose that skill? Um, Once the dough has doubled in size, knock it back and knead it for a few minutes. And I don't mean from a cake mix. Can someone bake a cake from raw ingredients? There's no way. There's no way anyone can do that anymore. That's been lost. We lost that skill. Okay, that's fine. Divide the dough into two equal pieces and roll it out, each piece into a circle, about 25 centimeters in diameter. Place the dough circles onto two greased bake trays. I have no way of really judging this, but they both sound pretty reasonable. They both kept the context of some kind of possible dessert mixture, and I think they're both pretty good outputs. Let's see what GPT-0 has to say. Oh, it wants me to log in. Okay. Actually, it Briskness score of 63, or 67, and Perplexity score of 63. It actually got the wrong portion of it, or some of the wrong portion of it, as AI written. And the bottom portion, which was also AI written, came back as not AI written. Interesting. All right, let's see. So 63 and 67 versus 106 and 236. So this did a little bit better on the score chart. Blitz. Blitz is a baking term. I know that. To puree or chop. Huh. 200 degrees Celsius. That's that's maybe too hot, right? But I don't. That sounds quite hot. Nah, 392. All right, that's fine. That's the only thing I've really baked. I've actually made a pizza from scratch. I did that. I actually can cook. I've made crepes many times. I've made dough many times from scratch. Um, I've made soups. I cook every day, actually. So I talk a lot of shit, but I actually can cook. I don't know any of these terms, but yeah, I grill. I grill all the time. I pretty much do everything except attract women. One thing I don't like about GPT-3 is when it gets to a period, sometimes it just stops and it refuses to extrapolate beyond that, which is not helpful. I would like it to not do that, and I think there is a setting to change that. But anyway, so we came back with one sentence. I don't. Tensors are also optimized for automatic differentiation, which is used by PyTorch to compute gradients during training. That is true, which is used in the training of deep neural networks. That's also true, but less formative. Shape. Tensor has a shape which specifies its dimensions and how many elements it contains in each dimension. For example, a vector has one dimension, so its shape is n, where n is the number of elements in the vector. Actually, its shape is. Uh, that's. I guess that's right. That is right. Yeah, where n is the number of elements in the vector. A matrix has two dimensions, so its shape is m comma n. In addition to specifying the size of each dimension, you can optionally specify the name of each dimension. This is useful when you want to refer to specific axes within your tensor. Pretty good. Tensors come in a variety of shapes and sizes. The simplest tensor is scalar, which is a single number. Okay, I think when a tensor is a scalar, it still is a vector. It's just a one-dimensional vector. So, or not a one-dimensional vector, a one, I don't know, but it's just one. I think it's still a vector. It's not, I mean, it didn't say that it's not a tensor. It's still a tensor. A tensor, the simplest tensor, is a scalar, which is a single number. A vector is a one-dimensional tensor with a length that can be any number. A matrix is a two-dimensional tensor with a height and width. A three-dimensional tensor is a cube-shaped array with a height and width and depth. Higher dimension tensors can have any number of dimensions. Cool. I don't know if it's a cube shape. It's just a, I mean, really in coding, it's just an array and an array and an array. So you have a vector of vectors, and then that's a vector of vectors. And a two dimension is each element in the vector is another vector going the perpendicular direction. Is what it looks like. I'm sure it's not actually the mathematical definition, but both of them did very well. And you can access the individual values in a tensor using these names. High perplexity score of 40.3 and burstiness score of 27.789. A little bit lower, significantly lower than the last run, but this is more technical, so there's going to be less variation in perplexity. Perplexity I'm surprised by, but nothing really was that complicated. That's to be expected with this. I don't know if this is technical, but it is technical, just not, it's not like, it's just basic stuff here. Wow. This blew it out of the water, and I think it's going to be these hash signs and the other symbols here that are going to throw it off. But perplexity score, that's the highest I've ever seen. Almost 1,300, 13,000, I'm sorry. And a burstiness score of almost 47,000. So, and I think this was a better response. So, this Llama definitely won this round. Better response and a significantly higher score, but that might just be due to the symbols. We go ahead and take out these symbols. Of course, now it's going to be even more random because none of this makes sense anymore, but yeah, so the score went back down. Still higher, but you see it there. The symbols do throw things off, but doesn't change the overall sentiment of whether it was written by AI or not. So a proposed method of defeating detection has been to inject symbols randomly through the text. That doesn't actually work because it's still really just looking for the variation in complexity of words and the variation in sentence length. Supposedly, when humans write text, they vary in how complex the words they use are. So I'm not really sure how to explain that in a quantifiable way, but supposedly you'll have words that are more predictable and less predictable dispersed throughout the piece of text that you wrote pretty evenly, whereas chatbots tend to stick, or not really chatbots, but language models tend to stick in a range of complexity of words. And the sentence length, that's easy to see. So humans, when they write, they vary their sentence length much more randomly than a text generator would. All right, so I put just a portion of the actual code, the display code, the HTML for the llama server.py, and it came back with, it kind of understood what was going on and added a button, a generate button, and a paragraph section. Obviously, it didn't, there's a lot more here, but it did pick up on what was going on and kind of continued it in a way that made sense. GPT-3 similarly added a little bit more, created another column, added a text box for output, and some other things that are, kind of boilerplate and not really definable or identifiable as anything, really. So now we'll go the other way. See if so Llama was able to pick up on its own code and came back with something a little more contextual than GPT-3 did. So if we ask GPT-3 about its own code, perhaps it will have a similar, better response. Alright, so I think overall, Llama was able to pick up on the code context a little better. Llama might be better at coding. I haven't tried asking it to perform code, so I think that's what we'll do next. And this is just going to be a long dump of text, just a long dump of content to see if people like, some videos I see are about an hour long of just rambling on. So here we are rambling on about the 30B model. Just going to put it out there, see if people like that. Maybe you sit down. And sometimes I do that. I sit down and I watch a long video while I'm, relaxing a little bit. So it does look like Llama might be better at coding. Function handler came back with a try catch, which, although the original code doesn't have that, I think that's a little more interesting. I'm not too sure how well this picked up on what was going on, but it did a equal job to GPT-3, whereas before, when I put in the code from Llama, it seemed like Llama was able to pick up on what was going on better than GPT-3 did. Here, I'm not really going to say that GPT-3 did a better job, although I'm really not. So let's try actually comparing code. And we'll try and use the web UI's chat feature, that the flag is dash dash chat. I suspect that it's just continuing prompts and not doing anything differently. Obviously, it's not trained any differently. It's just a different format. But in this way, I'll be able to ask questions. And I think that's what we want to do here. So we'll go with the chat web UI, and then we'll go back to chat GPT and see if we can notice anything. All right, so here we are in a head-to-head code generation battle. One really weird thing about Llama is it seems to remember the last chat that you had with it, or at least the beginning prompts of the last chat that you had with it. And I'm not sure how or where it's getting that from. Nothing should be persistent. I delete everything. Very strange. Not sure what's going on there. To generate a basic HTML web page that displays I am competent, it said no problem, here's some code, and returned absolutely nothing. I hit generate again, and nothing happened. ChatGPT, and I started with, I want to write a simple website in HTML. Are you familiar with this language? Llama said yes, but it's not the only thing that makes up a website these days. You also need to know about CSS and PHP. There are many other technologies like MySQL and jQuery that you should be aware of too. It can take years to learn all those things, but don't worry because there are plenty of tutorials online that will teach you everything you need to know. Which is a good answer. It's succinct to the point and kind of has all the key stuff in there, goes over a couple languages. I would prefer this answer over to ChatGPT's try hard. Yes, I'm familiar with HTML. HTML is a standard markup language used to create websites and consists of series of tags and attributes that are used to define the structure of a web content page, and then it tells you to get started, and it does. I didn't ask for all that, and even Bing is actually fantastic. The Bing chat, I've been using it, and it is great for just basic research on things. Just getting it gives sources. It's much better than GPT-3 for asking questions. Not Chat GPT for asking questions. But Chat GPT does do a great job of coding. It really is your coding partner. I'm not sure why it says PHP up here, but this is valid. This will run perfectly fine. I don't even need to try it. It's great at helping out with code, providing boilerplates and basic functions. Does a fantastic job. Summarizing things, it does a good job at that. But for getting information, Bing Chat, hands down, is a great tool. I'm using Bing pretty much exclusively now. I do use Google because I'm on Chrome, so to quickly look up things, I'll use Google. And for factual info, not for factual information, but for something that is a definite fact, and I'm not trying to learn about a topic. Like if I want to know, I don't know why I'm always saying this, but who won the World Series in 1967? I think Google does a better job. It'll bring you to, it has more pages that are to the point, and I don't know if it does a better job. It's just faster and it's right there. So for stuff like that, I'll look it up. If I'm looking for a PDF, I'll go to Google, just because it'll just give me the PDF that I'm looking for. But for trying to expound on a topic or get things like that, Bing Chat is a game changer. Okay, so I ran one more. I said provide some code about whatever you want. Just give me something. Gave absolutely nothing. So Llama's not doing code, unfortunately. But I think it would expound on code, not in the chat option, but in the general generation. I think it, and it did, we saw it. It built on code, so it does have knowledge of code, and it was trained significantly on GitHub. We can, did I not? Goodness. Yep, this is all going to be in there. I'm not editing this. Yeah, so here's the GitHub, but they did half the epochs, which is kind of weird. So for how many epochs, that's basically like how many times. You can pretty much multiply this number by this number, and that'll give you the pretty much the amount of data it was trained on. So about half of that's too bad. I would have liked to see this higher. but it doesn't have a lot of book knowledge, and a lot of Wikipedia knowledge. So that's why I think its generations, for stories especially, are quite hilarious and pretty high quality. Um, Common Crawl and C4, when I looked at what C4 was, it is just a better, more refined version of the data from Common Crawl. So I don't like this at all. That seems to be kind of redundant. I think they should have done a little more GitHub, but maybe they found they didn't need to. Yeah, it is what it is. So Llama's not coding. Okay. So for code generation, again, a little bit disappointed here. I just copied the beginning of its own model of itself, and it looks like it's just going to keep, it's not adding, it's not continuing the code in a useful way. So it looks like we're just throwing the whole book at it. But some of these parameters, I'm surprised the actual model didn't include. I'm not sure if all of these are true, but are not true. All of these are valid, but it looks like it's just going to continue adding arguments or setup for the model, and it looks like we're going to start repeating things. Doesn't look like we did. Okay. All right. But some of these I don't think are defined in the model args. So that's too bad. We'll try something else. Wasn't able to pick up on what was going on. It didn't add anything useful here. I thought it might, since it's its own model, but it's code generation. I can't rate too highly. This is interesting with comments. This code has comments, and now it does a pretty good job. The read function, I stopped at the read function here, and it included this with open OS expand user, which I'd never used before. I've used OS path obviously, but not the expand user, and that's pretty cool. It looks like it even will use the built-in module. It'll use the OS function to work with the terminal and type in pwd to get the working directory and insert that in, which is pretty cool. I'll definitely be using. Not really though, because anytime you're using OS path, you should format the path correctly. So this is kind of cool but useless. And we're reading mode R, and we're returning. Yeah, that's much better. The with open, that's like what you should be doing in Python now. This is better Python code than the actual than what's been done here. And then it added this convert file, and then it added these comments too. So that's cool. That looks pretty good. And it didn't. The comments are just usage comments, and what it's doing here. It's not. They're not that explanatory or instructional. Um, but it came up with this convert file. Obviously, it's not, it's just a comment, and there's no actual code that does any converting here, but it looks like it started. We'll continue this, see what it comes up with, but that's pretty good. Okay. So obviously this isn't actually doing anything useful, but it got the size and shards, I guess from here. And otherwise, just looking at it, this looks pretty good. Not sure what's going on here, but we're removing the type. Not really doing anything, but it is better than before. Not bad. Not bad. Let's see if we can come up with something maybe simpler, but similar. So here, all it should do is take this information, put it in here, and then come up with the reply. Let's see if it can do it. Ah, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. But came with the, this is, it couldn't do it. It failed. I'm disappointed here. I bet GPT-3 would be able to. Let's check. Yeah, I mean, a little bit better. Still couldn't do it, but it kind of failed here too. So not much better, but slightly better. Kind of picked up on what was going on a little more than this did, but not much. Not much more. Debatable which is better. Both not good. So I'm pretty much done with this for now. I'm gonna try and go to bed. Watch a video. I got some. Just chilling. But if you like this kind of format where I'm just basically rambling on, it takes up some time. Maybe you watch this while eating dinner or lunch or breakfast or whatever. Definitely post in the comments. Always comment. I will always respond. And if you have issues, comment and I will respond. If you have suggestions, definitely comment and I will respond. Just keep the conversation going. If you want to, come up with some kind of collaboration, maybe we make a Discord, you make a Discord, I make a Discord, you let me know how you want to do that. I'll definitely, I'm always down for code focus. I'm not really here to chat. I'm not really trying to chat much. I can talk to myself. But if I want to code or do something like that, something it could be fun too. But project oriented. We can work together and build some amazing things. Let me know. I hope you guys have a great day.